Welcome to the Home Team Sacramento podcast. I am Josh Takimoto, one of your hosts, and unfortunately, Kevin Bracey is not here tonight, but that is okay because we have a very special guest, our friend, Shay Haddow. She is the author, speaker, podcaster, and founder of Alpha Girl Confidence. What's going on, Shay?
What's up, Josh? Good to be back.
It's good to see you again. Now, did I get your last name right?
Haddow. You got it. Most people get it wrong, but you got it right.
You know why I got it right this time? Because I think I messed it up when we did the Character Combine podcast.
Yeah, it's very possible.
I'm like, Haddow. I tried to get too fancy with it.
Yeah, that's what most people do. So right. Just keep it simple.
And we had this conversation. You're like, hey, just think about it this way. It rhymes with, it's like shadow without the S. And I'm like, that's been in my brain ever since.
You have an excellent memory. That's awesome.
I don't know. Let's not go too far. I don't know if that's true. But I will take it. So I did remember your last name. So, and man, I always love it when I have to intro a guest and there's like a million things that I could describe you as, like as an author, speaker, podcaster, founder of Alpha Girl Confidence Coach. It's like the list just keeps going on and on. Is there anything I missed? Are you?
No, just a person, just a normal human.
Okay, well, perfect. I should have just done that. It's like it just sums it up very nicely. I love it. Well, we were just kind of joking that I honestly, in complete transparency, I forgot that today was National Girls and Women in Sports Day. And once that came to my attention, I'm like, oh, we have the perfect person to be on the podcast today. Like that couldn't have worked out any better. Yeah. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into some of these topics as far as female athletes and confidence, all those things, especially when you and I first met, I just, like me and my wife, I didn't have her. I was part of the process, but not the tough part. We just had our first daughter. And since then we have another little girl. So we have two little girls in our family. And so, obviously everything you said was really interesting to me the first time we met, but now it's like, it takes on a whole different meaning because of the season that me and my wife are in life with our daughters. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before we get started with all of my questions, for anybody who doesn't know Shay, can you just give us a little bit of your background, your athletic background, your coaching background, and then how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it nice and concise. But I grew up playing soccer and basketball, was a really good athlete until I got injured at the age of 12. I tore my ACL. And from that moment on, my self-doubt started to come out, my anxiety, my lack of confidence, like all of these kind of mental, social, emotional things, I started really to struggle with. I almost quit because I really fell out of love with the game because I just was lacking so much confidence. Whenever I was stepped onto the field, I was constantly worried of, am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to get benched? What are other people going to think about me? And so it really was just this up and down roller coaster all the way through my college years, to be honest. And it wasn't until my senior year in college, I went to VCU and transferred to Utah State. It wasn't until that senior year where I really started to look at mindset, confidence, kind of the mental side of things, because I knew it wasn't so much a physical thing that I was struggling with, but it was like the mental things. It was also like the leadership and that kind of stuff. And so I started to really dive into it because I had a horrible season my junior year. And I really wanted to end on a good note. I wasn't a good teammate my junior year. It was just, I was not taking personal responsibility. So just a slew of things. So once I started kind of diving into that, I started adopting some of these strategies, and I started really focusing on the mental side of things. And my senior year was amazing. Like I had so much fun. I was team captain, like the best year I've ever had. And then when I started coaching, I started coaching, 10-year-old girls, 12-year-old girls. I started to see that they were struggling with the same things I was struggling with when I was their age, but I thought that I was alone. I thought I was kind of this, that I was broken, that something was wrong with me. And just that, no one else had these issues that I was dealing with. So the more I was coaching, the more I realized how common it was. And so I was doing personal training. I was coaching at the junior college level, at the club level here in Sacramento. And then I was like, I love coaching, but I don't want to spend all my time on the field because to be honest, there's a lot of coaches out there, but there wasn't many people focusing on the mental side of things. And I saw that was where the girls needed the most help. And so I was, really got into, helping girls with mindset and confidence. And more so now is like the social emotional side of things, just because I don't want them to have to go through what I went through alone. I want them to know they're not alone. And I just want to be there as a resource to help them to have more fun in their sport. And just for me, it's about being confident off the field as much as on the field.
No, I love that. And there's so many things I can kind of branch off from there. But I want to kind of go back a little bit. You mentioned you were a bad teammate.
Yeah.
And so can you maybe dive into that a little bit? Because I'm interested, because like you hear people say that, but typically they don't kind of dive into what,
Yeah.
what made them a bad teammate. So what was it specifically that made you feel like, hey, I'm not being the best teammate I can possibly be?
Yeah. So at the time I was riding the bench a lot. And I wasn't get the playing time I wanted. So when I was on the bench, I was always the kid kind of pouting, not cheering my teammates on, almost wishing that my team wouldn't do well if I wasn't playing. And I kind of hate to admit that, but it's the reality. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's people listening that can relate to that, where it's like, if I don't play, I don't want my team to do good because I want it to seem like I need to play for us to do well. So it was very like, self-centered, egotistical. I was kind of just out for myself a lot of it. And then the other part is I just blamed other people for my lack of results, for my lack of playing time, blame my coaches, my teammates, losing my starting spot, stuff like that. So I just really wasn't a solid teammate. And I'm glad that I went through that because I can share that story. And also I think it made me become the leader that I did become my senior year.
That's really cool. It's interesting, and I'm sure you have teammates that you played with or people that that went through this, but I know a lot of people through my years of playing baseball where and I just played in high school. I didn't play in college or anything like that, but there's so many people even to this day that ended their playing career at the high school level and ended on a bad note where they were that teammate
Yeah.
that was, at the end of the bench, didn't want to do anything, didn't give any effort, but that's how they ended their career. And even to this day, I'm talking like these are people in their early 30s are still talking about how coach screwed me over with this, or hey, this guy shouldn't have played instead of me. It's like, dang, we're still talking about that right
Yeah.
now. And so it's really cool. In your case, you didn't end your career that way. That happened your junior year, and you had this like redeeming season where you could take everything that you learned about yourself in that junior season and then apply it to your senior season.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like that's a really cool part of that whole story you just told, because like I said, I know a lot of people that end their career that way, and then it's just this bitter thing that they hold on to, which is
Yeah.
weird.
I never thought about it like that, but you're right. I think I would have had so much regret and guilt if I wouldn't have ended on that note. And I honestly can say that I don't have any regrets from playing. And I think that's huge. Because that's like a big thing. And is like you want to leave it all in the field so you don't have regrets. And I'm so glad that I came to that realization before my senior year.
Right, right. And then which age do you work with now? Do you work with like a huge range of ages, or is it very
Yeah, I mean,
specific?
yeah, like middle school, high school for the most part. Some kids a little bit younger, but mainly I would say the most is like 12, 13, 14-year olds for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, my sister is a middle school math teacher. My wife is a
Yeah.
high school PE teacher. So I definitely hear a lot of stories from both of those age groups. And I know guys and girls at that age are a little bit different, but like, what is it like for you as a coach? Because I mean, very different. Like, the only couple of years separate them, but when you go from a middle schooler to a high schooler, the mentality is very different. So, like, what is that like for you, kind of balancing and dealing with both of those ages?
As far as coaching goes,
Yeah.
you know, there is like a difference, obviously. The biggest difference I see is that middle schoolers are a little more still in the phase of trying to figure out who they are. Granted, so are high schoolers, but they've started to figure it out a little bit more. They're a little less in the comparison, a little bit. But to be honest, um, I don't coach them that differently just because it's all the same things, but they're just maybe a little bit of a step ahead. Right. And even to say that a lot of the stuff I coach my girls through is stuff that I'm personally going through or working through. And it's like this. So I really think that yes, even though it could be a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, whatever it is, they may be going through different things, but I think a lot of the root fears, the root issues are the same thing. And one of those things being the fear of judgment. Like I've done this several times. I just did a call today with a group of 16-year-olds, and then I've done it with the group that I work with. Every single time we go over the biggest fears and we get down to the root of the biggest fears, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, the root of the fear is a fear of judgment. So I think that's true for a 10-year-old. I think that's true for, honestly, a 30, 40, 50-year-old sometimes,
Sure.
right? So it's like, yes, it's a little bit different, but we're all kind of going through the same things in a sense.
That's interesting. The idea of the judgment and being afraid of judgment is a really interesting thing, especially nowadays. If I remember correctly, we don't need to put your age out there, but I think you and I are in a similar age range. And obviously, as we were coming up, like social media was present,
Yeah.
but it was still kind of in its infancy. It was everybody had it, but it wasn't the monster it is today. And I say monster in all senses
Yeah.
in all senses of the word. But that's obviously something like, it's very similar when you hear people talk about cell phones, right? Like when the cell phone first came out, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a crazy cell phone. Look what it can do. Now kids being born into this generation, they only know a world with cell phones, right? Same thing with social media. That's obviously a major part. It has to be, right, of what you do. And when it comes to judgment, I think a lot of people are afraid of judgment, not just from face-to-face interactions, but the judgment they're going to receive on social media. So how do you navigate those waters in social media? Because we know it's a nasty, I mean, if you're a football fan right now and your team lost in, the AFC or NFC championship, those fans are brutal. You don't even know those people, but when you're receiving criticism or judgment from people that you go to school with, I imagine that's just a horrible, horrible thing to go through. So like, how do you deal with that whole social media world with your athletes?
Yeah, I think you're right that like this social media has amplified it, right? So like back when we were in middle school and high school, if we were going to be judged, it was by our classmates in person or teammates, but it wasn't the whole internet, right? It was like MySpace wasn't really like that.
Right.
So it was just like it's just social media has put it on such a bigger scale, and it is really a huge, like I talk about mental health a ton, because I struggle with anxiety a lot, and the girls I work with struggle. I think a lot of teenagers honestly do right now. So it's something we talk about a lot, and a lot of the time when we talk about mental health and confidence and comparison and judgment, social media comes into the conversation, because it is as simple as opening up Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. And it's like, boom, those feelings of comparison come in, those feelings of judgment come in. And I still feel those. Honestly, today I was eating lunch, and this morning, like I was like not in the best place. Like I was just like feeling these feelings because I check social media before I usually do. I usually wait until after I meditate and after I work out and everything, but I checked it beforehand. And so that's kind of what caused these feelings. And for me, I was like, I almost want to take like a whole month off of social media, just because I know how much more free I would feel and how much more like calm and peaceful and everything I would feel. So it affects us as adults. But just imagine a teenager who already is so tied up in fear of judgment and what other people are thinking of you and fitting in. So it's really amplified it. And so I try to talk to my girls about, specifically with the sport, is like when let's say you have a game on a Saturday afternoon, your game's at 1 o'clock. I always try to tell my girls, like, at least like on your way to your game, like let's eliminate the social media, because that's just like, let's take the focus like away from other people and put it back on ourselves. And so I like to tell the girls, like, at least before a game, get off social media while you're on your way. bonus points if you don't get on it at all that day until after your game. And I've had some girls do that, and they came to me and they're like, I had the best game I've ever had today. And I was like, why do you think that is? Like, obviously I know why, but they're like, probably because I wasn't on TikTok all day. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's like how it can affect performance. But then also, like for me, every weekend I get rid of social media. There's once in a while a weekend where I don't, but I'm very conscious of when I'm on it. So I would advise anyone listening, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a coach, whatever, is pick one day, just at least one day a week where you just delete your social media and just see how it changes you. Like, see how many other things you're able to do. So instead of for me, it's when I'm bored, which probably for everybody, when you're bored, what do? You just grab your phone. It's just like this automatic thing, right? And then you go into the comparison and all that stuff happens. But when you don't have your social media, you'll still go check it and you'll be, oh, wait, I don't have it. But instead, maybe you'll pick up a book. Maybe you'll go play with your dog. Maybe you'll go for a walk. So it's just like so good, not only for our mental health, but just for our like productivity, performance, and physical health too.
100%. Even the way you described it almost feels like when we start trying to eat healthier, or when we try to get into a better workout routine, they always say, right, those first few days are going to be brutal. You're not going to want to go. You're not going to want to eat healthy. You're going to want to grab the unhealthy thing. But once you do it, all of a sudden you get into that routine, and all of a sudden it's like, dang, this actually is really nice. I'm feeling really good. And I think it's the same thing with social media. You put that out there. It's like, really, a whole day with no social media? Like you said, what am I supposed to do when I'm bored? But then they do it. And I feel like 100% of the time, I haven't heard too many people say, I missed it the entire time.
I hated it or whatever.
I hated it. It's like, I wanted to shoot myself. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, actually, I kind of forgot about it at a certain point, and it was awesome.
That's totally how it is for me. So if I do Saturday, Sunday, which I usually do, sometimes Saturday I'll be like, I'll go to check it. I'm like, oh, I don't have it. And I'll like be like, oh, I kind of want to check it. But then Sunday I forget about it. And Monday, a lot of the times I'll forget to download it until like halfway in the day. And I'm like, oh, I want to post something on Instagram or whatever. So it's like, yeah, you're totally right. The first day is hard. And then two, like I've been trying to do it on vacations, which there used to be a part of me where I was like, no, I want people to see what I'm doing on vacation. I'm like, why do I care? Like, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Right. So I did it. I was in Hawaii for a week in December, and my wife and I were like, we're just going to delete social media for the whole week. And it was amazing. Like, I didn't think about it one time. And so weird, I really would highly advise, even if it's just a couple hours or a day or a weekend, it's really, really awesome.
100%. Yeah, that is a vacation thing for sure. Like I've been there before too. It's like, oh no, they're not going to see my picture of the beach that they've probably seen 50 times today. It's like, what are they going to do with their day? Yeah, no, exactly. It's 100%. It's a very strange thing, but I love that. And I think, like you said, coaches or athletes would definitely, parents too. I mean, I think any person who's living and breathing who has social media could probably benefit for a little break every once in a while.
My grandma probably uses Facebook more than I do, so anybody could benefit.
Absolutely. So let's go to like what you're doing now. I mean, I know you've been doing it for a little while, but once your sports career was over and you moved into coaching, and then dealing with like the mental side of the game, when and why? I kind of have an idea why, but like when and why did you start Alpha Girl Confidence?
Yeah. So when was just before February of 2020. So actually before COVID hit, and it was good timing on my part. But before COVID hit, I started it. And why was because it just kept coming up more and more and more with the girls I was training, with the girls I was coaching. I could just sense this lack of self-confidence, lack of self-worth. And I just knew like it was something that I was extremely passionate about because of my own experience with it. And so I don't know, it just was such a great timing for me as far as like, I know that's bad to say with COVID, but like, it really was a blessing in disguise for me in a way, because it forced me also to go all into, confidence and mental performance training, as opposed to just like dabbling in it and stuff while continuing to like coach in person.
Got it. Uh, Sorry, I just had a thought that popped in my head, and I don't want to lose this thought, because I really want your
Yeah.
opinion on this, because this is something that drives me crazy. And maybe it's just my relationship with social media. Maybe it's I just don't have this mentality. I don't know. I'm not trying to make myself seem better, because I have my flaws, but this is not one of them. I don't do this. And but I've told my wife, and we've had conversations plenty of times. One of the things that drives me nuts when it comes to female athletes is, and you see it all the time, if Sports Center, ESPN, any of these sports social media outlets post something. For example, if you see a girl who's playing baseball and she strikes up the sides, if you see a girl who's competing, doing something, whatever it may be, you look at the comments, which is a bad idea, I know, but you look at the comments and there's always a couple of clowns that are like, well, what's the big deal? Like, or they make it seem like it's not a cool feat. It's not an impressive feat by the athlete. And it's like, well, the guys aren't that good that she's competing against. Like, there's always something. It's like, first of all, my thing, it's like, why do you have to say anything? Like, this is just dope. Like, what she's doing is dope. Like, why can't it just be left at that? But you always have to say, well, if she was competing against this person, like if she was a Major League Baseball player, she'd get smoked. If she was in the MLS against men, no chance. So it's like, why are we doing this? So the floor is yours. Like, it's not even really a question. I'm just saying, like, I don't understand. Well, that's with anything, right? Like, people on social media have to give their opinion, but specifically when that happens, now I look at the comments to see, like, okay, where's the first one? Oh, there it is. 2 comments down. Sure enough, someone said something, and it's like, why is it necessary? I don't know if you have any insight in that, but it's weird to me. But please.
I would love to go on a little rant about this. So, like, I've gone into some rabbit holes. I remember specifically there was a post about Rachel Garcia when she had all these amazing things, right? And I was like, that's freaking awesome. She's like so accomplished and all this stuff. And it was on Twitter, and I started reading down the comments, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should not have done this. I'm glad I did. But I started getting so angry seeing like, what's softball? Softball's not a sport. Like, just all these from bros who don't actually have their real name, who have pictures of NBA players who aren't actually showing their face, who probably live in their mom's basement. And so it's really, I think that this stems from not just guys, we'll just say people. Okay. We'll just say people that have zero self-worth. So they have to put other people down, no matter what it is, to make themselves feel like they're somebody. And I'm not saying that they're nobody. Everybody is somebody, but I'm just saying that a lot of the time, okay, maybe every time, the trolls on social media, they behave that way because they do not like themselves at their core. Otherwise, if someone had so much love in their heart and so much confidence and so much self-worth, they would not be trolling other people. There would be zero need for that. So I like to remind kids that if they see those comments or get those comments, realize that that person is going through their own shit.
Right.
That person, it has nothing to do with you. And I'm like getting so heated right now. I'm knocking my microphone around. Like that person being a jerk, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with their lack of self-worth and self-love. So that's my take on it. And like I said, I've gone down some rabbit holes, like, reading different, on ESPN and stuff. And it's just blows my mind how many people do that kind of thing and hide behind a screen and will just totally rip people apart for what? To make themselves supposedly feel better. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds 100% right. I mean, I think ultimately it does come down to a person's self-worth. And I mean, it kind of goes back to what you're saying about social media. Like, you'll take a break intentionally from social media just to get away from it. And some of these clowns spend all day, just looking for the next thing to comment on. Like, you don't have anything better to do. Like, I wish I had as much time as you do. Like, you have a 25th hour of the day, because I'm pretty busy with stuff. And it's like, I can't, spend all my time on social media like that. Like, what are you doing? It's very, very bizarre. But I mean, I think you said it best. I don't think there's anything else to add to that. Like, I think
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
yeah, it's something that I could go on and on and on about. And it makes me one of the couple things that really grinds my gears in this world. And it's that.
Sure. Well, so I kind of staying on that same path of social media and confidence, because like you said before, which it's really interesting. I didn't say this when you first mentioned it, but you were talking about how sometimes when you're teaching these lessons to your athletes, a lot of times it's something that's actually pointing back to something that you're dealing with and working through yourself. And it's so funny that you said that, because on our home team Sacramento Facebook group, my former JV baseball coach, Coach Feldman, love him, ton of respect for him. And he actually, I posed a question out there a couple weeks ago that was basically like, hey, how has coaching made you a better person? And one of the things he said in his response today was, sometimes I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, sometimes I'm teaching these lessons, I'm actually like, I'm looking at myself too. I'm learning as I'm teaching, you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like you said, the very, very similar thing that he said. But that being said, when it comes to social media, you have a pretty decent sized following. You're pretty well. Are you still in Sacramento?
I am. Yeah.
You are. Okay. So you're still part of our local home team here. So that's
Yeah.
good. I meant to ask you that before. Like, have you moved? We haven't talked to each other for like 3 years. So
Yeah. Still
I just
here.
wanted to make sure. But you have, like I said, you have a decent following on social media. So I'm sure you have received some form of hate before when it comes to what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe not, but I imagine you have.
Mhm.
How do you deal with that? Because like you said, you're telling your girls how to deal with this stuff. And then when it comes to your own personal life, sometimes it can hit differently, but like, how do you deal with those types of, comments, criticisms on social media? Or maybe it's your face. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
people are just, critical of what you're doing. Like, how do you handle that?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I think it's important, and I'm going to say it still hurts me sometimes, right? Like it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes, I've had some emails in the past, or something on Facebook or whatever, and the best way that I've learned how to deal with it is to let it suck, let the emotion of whatever is there come up. So I used to be someone, little, backstory. I used to be someone who would like feel like, oh, I have to respond. I have to defend myself. I can't let this person like win. Right.
Sure.
But I learned that was just my ego talking. That was just me trying to defend my ego. And so what I've learned, and it's been a huge, like I said, emotions, like how do we deal with our emotions? And so it's really like, okay, feeling like, what is this triggering in me? Is this making me feel like I'm not good enough? Is this making me feel like I'm a fraud? Like, what is this triggering in me? Because anytime someone says something like that and you feel something, it's something that you need to see in yourself that maybe you haven't seen before, something that you need to kind of work on and accept and all that kind of stuff. So it really is. First step is like feeling the emotion and being there with the emotion and trying not to change or escape the emotion, because if we try to change it or escape it, we just suppress it, and that anger or that resentment or whatever that thing is going to stay in your body, and then someone's going to do it again, and it's going to continue to come up, it's going to continue to get suppressed. So it's really about being with the emotion, being with like, what is this making me feel about myself? And the more you can just be with the emotion, then eventually it'll pass, it'll come up, and you won't have to keep dealing with it again. So I know that may seem like, whatever you want to call it, a little woo woo or soft or whatever, but honestly, that's how I've dealt with my emotions, and how I've learned to deal with them is to stop trying to escape them or defend yourself, and like be there for the emotion, accept the emotion, and everything will pass. And so will that emotion.
That's interesting. And so, no, that's actually funny. I thought that was the exact opposite of soft or woo woo, because,
It's
um,
hard. That's the thing. People will think it's soft, like, oh, you should go defend yourself. But that's the
right.
easy thing to do.
Sure.
It's hard to not defend yourself. It really is. And if you feel like you need to write something and defend yourself, a quote unquote, like do it, but do it from a place of being with the emotion first and then doing it. Because if you just go right into responding, it comes from anger And that's never going to be a good situation. So respond from a place of acceptance and love, really, if you're going
Yeah.
to respond.
Right. No, I 100% agree. I mean, it's like, I mean, if you're using the sports analogy, right? Like if you're, training, you're trying to make it to that next level and you have the choice between, hey, I should really go to the weight room and lift or practice
Yeah.
my skill. I should do that. But there's also like this whole group of friends wants to go hang out. They want to go to a party. They want to go do this thing. That would be a lot more fun, a lot easier.
Yeah.
But I know I need to go to the gym. And it's kind of, that's how I look at, like, when you talk about some of this
Yeah.
mental stuff, like that's what I've
Mhm.
tried to tell athletes before. It's like, it's not a soft thing. It's not a weak thing. It's like, you got to think of it as like training your mind. Like you're making the
Mhm.
difficult decision to put your mind through hell, just like you would your
Mhm.
body. It's not
Mhm.
fun, but you got to do it. And I think sometimes if
Yes.
you make those connections with athletes, like it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's like physically training my body. You got to physically or, mentally train your mind. And so, no, I think that's a
Yeah.
great way of looking at it. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Um, I've talked to obviously plenty of coaches over the years and have connections with coaches. And uh, the funny thing about a lot of coaches is their spouses will hear the criticisms and they get almost more fired up than the coach themselves. So
Mhm.
let me ask you this: is your wife someone who will get real fired up on your behalf?
If I think she probably would more than I would at this point, just because I've
Yeah,
gotten to a place, and maybe that wasn't true a year ago or 2 years ago,
sure.
but I think now it's just I've gotten more confidence in myself. I've become more assured of myself, and the more confident I become, the less those things will hurt. And
Yeah,
that's true with any judgment, right? Like the more confident you are in yourself, the less you care about what other people think of you, or the less it hurts you.
right,
And so I think that, like, yeah, the people you love, generally it's like, what are they saying? How could they say that to you? Right. But
right.
it's like the coaches and the people that don't let it get to them. It's like, that that's a sign of them like being really self-assured and confident in themselves.
That makes sense. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was just curious because I've heard
Yeah.
plenty of stories where you would hear a coach criticize, like a football coach criticize,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh no, like you realize the moment their wife found out, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope they don't approach that person because they are not happy. So
Yeah,
it's a very
totally.
interesting thing because obviously our families and the people we're close to as coaches, right? Like they're
Yeah.
involved in what we do, and a
Mhm.
lot of times they take on those same feelings when the highs and the lows, like they take those things on.
Absolutely.
So um I just had to ask. But
Yeah.
um let me pull up my time real quick, just make sure we're good on time. Oh yeah, we're still good. We're still
Sweet.
good. Like I was telling Shay, I try not to get as like wacky and out of hand on this one. We try to keep it a little tighter. So I want to make sure I stay great, or stay true to my word. But so let me ask you this. So you've seen like a wide range of athletes. You've seen different ages. You've competed at various levels, high levels, college levels. What, in your opinion, what does it take for an athlete to be great at what they're doing? What takes them from good to great?
Consistency.
The last time I asked this question, they said the exact same thing. Please continue.
And this is, and I don't just mean, and consistency in a lot of different ways, consistency in the physical work and going out and doing the things, but also consistency in the mental work, and confidence in the mental side could be its whole other thing, which I can definitely would love to talk about. But I think it's really just consistency, because a lot of times, I think with everyone, but especially the younger generation, it's like, if I don't see results right away, then like, is this working? Like maybe I'm going to give up, or I'm going to try something new or whatever. So I think it's just really sticking to it and staying consistent in whatever you're doing is really the key to success in anything. I think that's why that's for me. And maybe the reason why I say that is because it's something I pride myself in, is like being really consistent, right? In the podcast, and showing up for calls and whatever it is. So it's like, if you just put in the work here and there, you're never going to be a great athlete or make it to the highest level. Like you have to be, consistently there, consistently show up, consistently put in the work. Even if one day isn't as good as the next day, it's like you're still putting in the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say consistency, and obviously everyone knows what that means. But then I think something that obviously I'm biased towards is like the mental work, because I see so many times parents and players and coaches prioritize the tactical stuff, the technical stuff, the physical stuff, which is all important. But then they're like, what's wrong? There's still something wrong. Maybe I'll go train more. Okay, that may help a little bit, but until you unlock the mind, you won't unlock the performance. So I like to, I don't think I came up with that quote. I know I didn't. I can't remember where I heard it from. It's like, before you unlock performance, you must first unlock the mind.
Hmm.
And so there's so many times where I attribute it to, like, let's say that you've got, you're like in a box essentially, and you could do all the skills, you could be the best athlete physically, but until you remove your glass ceiling, until you remove your limitations, you'll never be able to achieve what you really want to achieve and what you're really capable of. So to me, it's like the mental performance makes everything just so much better. And you could probably, look back at all the greatest athletes in the world, right? I'm sure they all prioritized, if not like did some sort of mental training. And yeah, it's just, I actually think I recorded a podcast on it to release this month sometime.
Oh, nice.
Where there's just too many people out there who think that more training is going to solve all their problems, when a lot of the time the physical thing isn't the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the person lacks self-belief and self-confidence, and no amount of training is going to solve a lack of self-worth, in my opinion. Like, it's so much deeper than that. So that's my take on, I guess, two of the things that I think needs to be prioritized to be a great athlete and to just be a successful, happy, fulfilled person.
Absolutely. Well, I'm wondering too, if, like you said, I love what you said about the physical training, not, that's not going to give you the self-worth. And I'm almost wondering if in some ways it could reach a point where that's actually going to hurt you more, right? Because, for example, if you're trying to deadlift a certain amount and you're in a place where maybe you're at a plateau and you can't quite get to that next level, and you're walking out of the gym or the weight room every time that happens thinking, it's not just a reflection of, hey, I'm just not there physically. It's like, oh, I'm just not strong. I'm not a good athlete. So I'm wondering if even that could potentially just prolong or amplify that issue if things aren't going well for you there.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good example, because if you look at like plateaus, or like, let's say like a major like dip in performance or whatever, if you don't have like the mental skills, you're never gonna kind of break through that. So yeah, I think that's good. And I also like, obviously, I like to say, like, okay, so if we look at the physical, the mental, the technical, the tactical, right? We could say those are the four areas.
Sure.
The technical and tactical parts of any sport are really important for the sport, but once you're done playing, you don't really need them, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't need to know how to juggle or have a great first touch. I don't, right? But the physical and the mental, that transcends the sport, right? Because I want to be a healthy person physically and mentally. So like, working on those things as an athlete are majorly going to help your game, but also going to help you to just be like a confident, healthy person when you're done playing your sport.
Which is something we've talked so much about on all the podcasts that I've done. That's we love sports for a lot of different reasons, but one of the most beautiful things about sports is you're playing a game and learning life lessons at the same time, which will, like you said, transcend every area of life, whether it's, your business, your family, when you're going through hard times, when you're going through great times, like all of that that's what somebody, Gabe Lemon, who was on our podcast last week, he mentioned that he's like, sports is like, you experience chaos, sadness, excitement, pain, anger, all of that within
all of it,
whatever 60 minutes, however long your sport is. It's like, oh, such a great way of looking at it. So that's why we love sports. I wanted to ask you this. I'm going to try to articulate this the best way I can. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to communicate here. So obviously, again, the group that you work with are young female athletes.
Mhm.
How often do you encounter a female athlete who, like you said earlier, places limitations on themselves because there is a belief that because they're a female, they can only achieve so much? Does that make sense? And
So you're asking how many times do I see that the limitation of being a female is like, that's the limitation?
yeah, like in their mind, it's like, well, I'm a girl, so I can't do that.
You
Does that
know
make sense?
what? It does make sense. And I honestly don't see that.
That's awesome, right? That means it's
Um,
like that's probably
yeah,
changed over the years.
I don't think I see that just because, yeah, I think there are so many incredible female athletes and role models that are doing amazing things that I feel like that kind of glass ceiling of what girls are capable of, I feel like that's been shattered in a lot of ways.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, to be honest, I don't really see like, oh, I can't do that because I'm a girl. Because I don't know, the girls that I work with, they got some big goals and some big dreams, and it's
That's
so
awesome.
cool. And I just think that we just, with obviously women's sports has a long ways to go as far as, the being in the media and stuff like that. But I feel like there's been a huge shift from even like when I was a girl, right? Like if you would have
Sure.
asked me if I had those limitations, absolutely I did. Right. But with the girls I work with, I don't personally see that.
That's awesome. That wasn't the answer I was expecting, but way
Yeah.
better. That was the best answer I could have gotten though. Because that's a great thing. Like
Yeah.
it would have bummed me out if you're like, yeah, I have like 6 girls who really struggle with that. But the fact that you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that big of an issue right now is fantastic. Like does show how much it's
Yeah.
um growing, which I think is a cool thing. So good. I'm glad that was the answer.
Yeah, it's
That's way
just it's
better.
never come up when we're talking about that kind of stuff. So I don't know, and maybe it's there in some ways, and it probably really depends also on the parents, and what they show their children they're capable of and stuff. But yeah,
Sure.
I don't see it, which I guess is a good thing.
That's an awesome thing. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question. Um, and then, like I said, just got a couple more for you here. Make sure I get you out of here in time. Um, I don't think I asked you this. So going back to when you started Alpha Girl Confidence, which by the way, you have a book out. It's called Alpha Girl Confidence, right?
No, it's called She the Confident.
I completely whiffed on that one. I should have done my research. I took a shot. I missed. I
But
hit the
like, so the book is She the Confident, and the podcast is Alpha Girl Confidence, and the business, like the brand, shall we say, is Alpha Girl Confidence.
okay. So
Yeah. So you got it.
she the confident. Make sure you check that out.
Yeah.
But so when you started your business, your brand, Alpha Girl Confidence, what was the response like from the community, especially like here in Sacramento?
Okay, really good question. So before Alpha Girl Confidence, it was Alpha Girl Soccer Academy, and it was local in-person training groups, one-on-one camps, clinics, stuff like that, right? And so I had like that base in Sacramento. But what's really interesting is when I transitioned from in-person training to online space, there wasn't much of a response. Like
Oh,
there's not, at this time, there's not a single person that I worked with in person that I currently work with now. I had some in the past that did, and I have a couple local kids that are in my program and stuff. But um, it's actually, I work with way more people on like the West Coast than I work with in my own hometown. Or sorry, on the East Coast. I don't know if I said the East Coast. I work with way more people on the East Coast and other parts of the country than I do like right in Sacramento and Northern California.
weird.
And I don't know why that is. It's interesting.
That's a great question. Again, not an answer I was expecting. What, like
Good.
Sacramento
I'm trying to
home?
keep you on your toes. And you know what? I think part of the reason could be is that I did the transition during COVID. So there
Sure.
was no in-person thing. So I couldn't really get out and do in-person workshops, and I couldn't do any of that stuff, which I tried to, but then I had to cancel it because COVID happened. So that could be a part of it, is that I never really got out into the community so much. It was more just everywhere.
Sure.
And so that could be a big part of it. Now there has been, like, I went to Intercom High School and did stuff with the volleyball team. And there's been some different clubs in the area, but it's not like it's this very big thing in Sacramento, I guess.
Home team. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Let's figure this out, Sacramento.
I need to get more into the community too. That's on me too.
All right. Well, see, Shay's taking responsibility for her part. Now it's up to you guys to take responsibility for your part. Get connected to Shay.
Yeah. And I will say I did Sac Republic. I did, because I used to be like an intern for Sac Republic and stuff. So I did maybe again before COVID, I went to one of their all girls clinics and did kind of a confidence talk and stuff like that. So I did have some, ins with Sac Republic and did some stuff with them, but it hasn't been like this, like, big Sacramento community type thing, I guess.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Two more questions for you. One question I really love asking our guests. Obviously it's called Home Team, and kind of our tagline, if you will, is like, we may wear different uniforms, but at the end of the day, we're still a part of this home team. Like, if you're an athlete or a coach who understands your platform, understands that you play a major role in this community and the positive impact that you can have, then you're part of this home team. And that's our mission. That's our goal. That being said, we still love competing against each other, and we still want to beat the school next door. So who is a coach or a trainer or someone that you're connected with that you feel is just amazing at what they do, who's contributing to the home team here in Sacramento? Just someone who you have a lot of respect for that you would maybe shout out. Usually I like to ask like coaches, like, who's another coach that you compete against that you love competing against, and why? I know you're not really in that same coaching space right now, but like, who is someone out there that you just have a lot of respect for in our hometown of Sacramento?
Yeah, I would say her name is Rose Schoen.
Okay.
I don't know if you should have her on the show, if not, but she, I believe the club, she kind of started her own club, working with, I believe, like, lower income, and I don't know a whole lot about it. So, don't quote me on this, but lower income, kids, she does a lot of stuff, helps them go to get scholarships, helps them with discipline and so much stuff. So I think it's called Azteca FC. You might have to look that up, but she is someone that, is a force in the community. She's done some amazing things in the community with soccer and just like helping kids to, develop discipline in their academics and stuff as well. So I would give her a shout out.
Awesome. Last question for you. And this is the big one. This is the one we'd like to end with. But I think it's really important. So as far as home team and here in Sacramento, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, when it's all said and done, like, what do you want your legacy to be here in the hometown?
Oh gosh, that is a very big question, Josh.
It's kind of somber too. The way I need to fix how I word that. It's like, when you're dead, how do you want people to remember you? It's like, oh, that's very dark. I got to fix that a little bit.
How do I want people to remember me? I would say I want people to remember me by someone who made them feel like they were good enough, no matter what they were achieving or weren't achieving, or, all that stuff, but just someone that when they came into my presence or talked to me or whatever it is, that I always made them feel like they were loved and like they were good enough.
I love it. That's awesome. That's a great way to end this thing. I haven't lied. I have one more question for you. Not a serious one. I do that all the time. I need to stop saying that I've got however many questions left, because
keep it coming, Josh.
I know I have one more. Are you Ted Lasso fan?
Yeah, I don't have Apple TV, so no.
Oh no.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm not one that's going to critique you for whatever streaming service you have or don't have. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you would enjoy it.
Yeah, I've heard all about it, and he sounds great. It sounds like a great show, but my dad's like, you just need to get Apple TV so you can watch Ted Lasso. I'm like, okay, but I haven't got it yet. So
okay, well, perfect. Well, if you do, we'll have this conversation again to see what your thoughts are. Or hey, if someone knows how to illegally stream something, then send it to Shay. then we
Yes, please send me all the cheat codes or whatever you call them.
There you
these
go.
days.
Just don't like give her a virus or anything, because we don't want to shut down her business. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, hey, where can they follow you on social media, websites? Where can they purchase your book?
Yeah.
All of those different things.
Yeah. So social media, just my name at Shay Haddow. So on Instagram and Twitter, I am there. And then the book, if you just go to Amazon, you can find it. Just type in She the Confident or Google it, it'll come up. And then the podcast is Alpha Real Confidence Podcast on Apple. I was going to say Apple, Spotify. Hey, put them together on Apple Podcast and Spotify. So those are all the places.
Hey, when you're a podcaster, that kind of stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
You start putting words together, there's slip ups.
You just make up your own words.
Yeah, no one's going to care. If you say it with enough confidence, right? It's fine. That's like, oh yeah, you've heard of Apple, Spotify, right?
Apple, Spotify.
Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Shay, thank you so much. It was fun connecting with you again. Hey, let's not wait so long next time. Let's have you back on the podcast way sooner than 3 years.
Let's do it. We'll wait like 2.5 years. I think that'll be
just
good.
Under 3. Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm happy to come on anytime. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. All right. Take care.